Hey guys, and welcome back. I just wanted to make a video today real quick. I don't know how long it's going to take me. Not real quick, it'd be 20 minutes or so. But anyway, some people were commenting that I should just put Subaru engines in the Volkswagens because they're more reliable and they're better and all this other stuff. And let's kind of go over this. And some guys have done this before, and there's some good things about it, and there's obviously some things that are not so good. And let's kind of go over these things. So should I convert a Volkswagen to Subaru? Something everybody just goes, they just bolts in. It doesn't just bolt in. There's I'm not an expert with Subaru engines, but I did work on them many years ago when they were kind of in the Subaru brats and the old wagons. But you know, I've worked on some of the later model ones, but I'm not really an expert with Subaru engines. So I have known about problems that Subaru engines have had, as well as the Volkswagen engines. You know, one of the Volkswagen guys, they always say that Volkswagen engines are really expensive, so Subaru ones are much cheaper, and you should just put a Subaru in. Well, first of all, you have to convert the transmission to bolt the Subaru engine in. I believe there's a kit to do that. I know those kits are not cheap, and maybe there's a adapter plate or something like that. I don't really know all that stuff, but I believe there is a kit to actually put the Volkswagen, the Subaru engine in the Volkswagen and use the Volkswagen transmission. Now, one of the other issues is the Volkswagen transmission is only designed for, you know, I don't know what, less than 100 horsepower. And you start putting all that extra horsepower in there, you're probably gonna have to upgrade your transmission. You might end up breaking nose cones, stuff like that. So those are things to be aware of. The other problem is with putting the Subaru in is you have to convert the wiring harness. So you're gonna have to add a computer, and to me, complicating it is not really what I want to have in a Volkswagen. I want my Volkswagen to be simple. Now you have this simple old carburetor with a pointless setup and a simple coil. Subaru has electronic ignition, which can be more reliable and more stable, but also a little more complicated when something does go wrong. I like simplicity, and I think that's the whole idea of having an old car, is having it be simple, and I think that's the lure to them, isn't it? Now, guys are converting their Vanagons to Subaru, and let's talk about that in a little bit later. I'm not sure where I'm going to talk about that, but I'm definitely going to cover that. And there's definitely a better option, in my opinion. Anybody like better gas mileage? We'll get into that one a little bit later. You can actually get better gas mileage doing something else, and we'll talk about that. And it bolts right in. Now, a lot of people don't know this. Subaru, I'm not sure what years they were, and I'm not sure what... like I said, I don't know their engine numbers and all this stuff, but a lot of them had mechanical lifters. They did not have hydraulic lifters, and a lot of times people didn't adjust the valves because it's very complicated to do, from what I understand. I don't think I've ever done it. I don't recall ever doing it. Maybe I did many years ago, but if I recall correctly, it has a shim system for the lifters. You guys can correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong about this, but it has a shim system for the lifters. It's kind of complicated to do the lifters and adjust the valves, and so people didn't do it. And so a lot of times the valves get bad and are burnt. So that's a real common thing from what I understand on Subarus, and so they're not problem-free. The other thing is you have a timing belt system, which is kind of a lot of timing belt in there. And in some of the models, like in the vans, it's easy to get to. You can, you know, change the timing belt. But in some, if you're trying to put it in a Beetle, it's kind of hard to get to that timing belt to change it on a regular basis. So maybe you're going to ignore it sometime, and that will be probably, I don't know if that's an interference engine or not, I don't recall, but that could be a problem in the future. And I do recall that Subarus had issues with head gaskets, same as the water pumper, water-cooled Volkswagen Boxer as well. They had problems with head gaskets. And both of those engines, the water pumper VW and the Subaru, are actually hard to do internals on. To get the pistons out, oh, Yeah, there's a hole in the side of the case to get the piston pin out. It's no, and then I believe putting it back together is probably where the issue is. Getting it apart, I'm sure you could get, in there, pull the piston pins out, and there's probably going to be some of them that aren't going to be very easy. So if you have to do any internal work on it, it's going to be a lot more difficult to repair than the air-cooled engine. So again, there are some benefits. You get horsepower, you get later technology, and all that, but you have a lot of other issues as well. So on your buses and stuff like that, to put a Subaru in this, the biggest issue is the radiators. Where do you put them? And the same thing on the Beetles. So I just cut holes in my hood. Not something I want to do. Do I just put a hole down under here and then get rid of the gas tank? And then where do I put that? There's just a lot of, there's some guys, like I said, they've done it. And you end up losing a lot of things. The other thing is having coolant lines running underneath your car is a problem for possible ruptures. So you might regain reliability of the engine, but you might have issues with the cooling system. Also, trying to get the air out of the cooling system is always really difficult when you have a radiator in the front of the car and an engine in the back. It is very difficult to do. So again, like I think it's the easier route and it's less expensive. It's probably going to end up costing you more, in the long run than just rebuilding your VW engine. And, guys go, well, you can't build a reliable air-cooled engine. That's absolutely false. You can build a good, reliable air-cooled engine. You can go with the aluminum case engine, and I'll tell you, and put two oil coolers on it. You're pretty much, there's very little that can go wrong. I mean, you're going to have something that, like I adjust my valves all the time. I check them all the time, but I rarely have to adjust them with the aluminum case engine. Now I have, in this engine, this thing here is a 2007, and it is an aluminum case engine. It has chromoly push rods, and I run them to 0, so I have no clearance on my push rods. All I do is set it. I check them all the time. Every time I change oil, I check the push rods, and so I'll pull the valve covers off. I will pull the rocker rods off, retorque the heads, which I haven't had them move at all on this. And so usually you have to retorque the heads. I do that every time. Okay, retorque the heads every time. Check them, just the bottom 4, not all the heads, bolts, just the bottom 4 behind the these 4 right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just retighten those. People go, oh, it doesn't work properly. It works great. We've been doing it for years. I know several VW shops that do the same thing. They tighten up these 4, retorque the bottom 4, and rarely ever do you have a head come loose. So I run the lash to 0, so all I do is just make sure my push rod, when I'm at top dead center, like you normally adjust your valves, I just make sure they spin and don't have any clearance. It's very easy to do. In fact, I find that much easier than having to set them at 6,000s. It's just like you take them off, you adjust them up, they spin, they're done. It takes less time. So I really like running chromoly push rods at 0, and running them at 0 with a mag case, you're going to have some movement in there. You're going to have times when they're noisy and times when they're not noisy. On the aluminum, man, it's just quiet all the time. Doesn't make hardly any noise. So the thing is it going to be expensive to go to an aluminum case engine, rebuild your engine? Yes, it is expensive. But how much fabrication are you going to have to do to convert it to Subaru? You're going to have to do all these tubes going from the back of the car to the front, or wherever you put your radiator. You have to convert it so the engine fits. You have to convert the wiring harness. Is it going to cost you less? Maybe. I don't really know, because I don't really want to go there personally. I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, yeah, you gain some horsepower. You have an engine that doesn't really fit in the engine compartment, and it doesn't work. Now on your Vanagons, this is a different story. Now the Vanagons, a lot of times they go to Subaru, and I've got a better option. A lot of guys don't know this, but AAZ turbo diesel that you can get, similar that came to in these trucks. Now, the Vanagon also came with a 1.6 diesel, and boy, were they slow and made a lot of noise. The AAZ is a huge improvement. That's what's in this truck. The difference between the AAZ and the 1.6 is the 1.6, even turbo diesel 1.6. It's funny, they're rated like at the same horsepower, but that's at a certain RPM. The horsepower on an AAZ is like right out of idle. Okay, so the horsepower is there all the way through the power band. So you can even put one in without a turbo, and they have way more better drivability than even the 1.6 did with the turbo, because they have power all the way through the power band, versus the 1.6 turbo diesel has power only in 1,000 RPM range in there, you know. So it definitely works a lot better than the 1.6. The argument I get is, I don't want diesel smell. Well, of course, your engine's in the back. Are you really going to smell it? Kind of a farce. I don't want diesel smell. I don't like the rattly part of it. You do get a little more engine noise, but here's the major benefit. How about gas mileage? Anybody ever thought about that? How about a Vanagon gets 30 miles a gallon? And that's highway mileage. The best part about putting the turbo diesel in the Vanagon is the city gas mileage. Most cars, you don't know, they actually get terrible city gas mileage. Most 4-cylinder engines, you'll find when you start checking your mileage, they get between 16, maybe 20 miles a gallon max. With a diesel, I run diesel, all my cars are diesel pretty much. And it's because they get way better city gas mileage. Like this Jetta here gets right about 28 to 30 miles a gallon in the city. The same thing in a 4-cylinder is only going to get 16 miles a gallon in the city. You guys, people don't know this. You got to really check that mileage. You'll find out what I'm saying is true. The same thing with this Rabbit. It gets 50 miles a gallon on the highway, and it gets like 32, 35 miles a gallon in the city. So the fuel savings of having the diesel is huge, especially in a Vanagon. Those things don't get very good gas mileage. And when you put the AAZ in it, you have plenty of power. It climbs hills really nice, maybe a little bit slower, of course, than the Subaru. But this is the best part. No more smog checks. Once you take it to the referee in California, which this may all change very soon, we may not have them anymore if this law goes through. I don't know. I'm not that big on it. I have a feeling it won't. But you won't have, once you go to the referee and you show them that it's a diesel, they sign over your paperwork, you go to the DMV, your car is classified as a diesel. Now you have no more smog checks if it's older than, I think it's 1999 or something like that. So all your Vanagons are old enough to qualify for that diesel exchange. Now the other option, if you go Subaru, now you have to get a smog check, and it's a pain in the ass because it's a different engine that was what was in the car. So they're going to have you going through more hoops, making sure that it meets the guidelines of that engine and all that other stuff. And to me, you're just causing more issues when you could just go straight to diesel and eliminate all that and get better gas mileage. The other thing in your Vanagon, you could even put one of these in your old split window bus if you wanted. The AAZ turbo diesel. When you put it in your Vanagon, it's a bolt-in. They have, all you do is you get the oil pan, the pickup, the mount system, and all that from the 1.6 liter Vanagon diesel. I think they make reproductions of all this stuff. I don't really know all that, but you know, but you just use stock parts and you just convert it over to the diesel. One of the problems is your turbo is lower than, and it's at an angle because your engine is going to be there like at an angle like this. So you might have to do some conversions to get the oil to flow down into the oil pan on the return. But other than that, it's just, you're done. It's very easy. You get better gas mileage. If you look on the thing, what's that guy, the Westy guy who sells the Subaru conversion kits, he speaks way down about the diesel. But everybody I know who's converted to diesel, they don't agree with that stuff on that website, because the gas mileage and just being free from smog, that's huge. I mean, why would you keep it that way and get way better gas mileage, eliminate all that emissions equipment, and not have to go and go to the referee and all that stuff because you got a Subaru engine in it, or whatever the hassles are, I don't know. But you know, and then your catalytic converter location being wherever it is and has to be close to the engine. Are they going to get you for other, there's just too many issues to me. So anyway, personally, I just stick with VW stuff. It just doesn't make sense. There's just not enough. There's benefits to it, but there's a lot of hassle. And if you know how to build a good air-cooled engine and you do all the right things to it and you're willing to spend a little more money, you're gonna have to spend a little more, you can get a very reliable VW engine that doesn't run hot, that pulls the hills nice and does all the stuff that the Subaru conversion would do, and you still have that simplicity of the air-cooled engine. So anyway, share your thoughts. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.